Let me first try to greet everyone. I know Yusek Rene has already done that, but of course, as your host this morning, I'd like to start with the DOST, my colleagues from DOST, led by our Secretary, dear Secretary Fortunato de la Peña, Yusek Rene Solidum. We also have from Region 11 offices here in Davao, the Provincial Science and Technology Center Provincial Director Vicente Tagangon, the DOST Region 11 Assistant Director for Finance and Administrative Services, Eduardo Tesorero, and then our partners from the Department of ICT, Yusek Dennis Vigorente, who I should cite as my predecessor in ASTI, has really contributed significantly to the growth of this agency. Thank you very much, sir. Dennis. And our partners from the National Coast Watch Council, led by Undersecretary Jose Luis Lama. Thank you, sir. From the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, CAAP, there are landlords here. We have set up this facility because of a cooperation with CAAP. And may I mention, we have here from the CAAP, represented by, well, I think we will be joined by Assistant Secretary Felino Castro, apologies. We will be joined by Captain Donald Mendoza and later on. From the National Security Council, we have Assistant Director General Maria Victoria Castro. Thank you. From the ICT Cluster 3 here in Mindanao, we have Alimzar Asun, Erlito Tangtotian. Thank you very much for gracing us with your presence. From the University of Southeastern Philippines, Lourdes Generalao, the President. From the University of Philippines, Mindanao, the Chancellor, Larry Digal. Office of Civil Defense, Region 11, Director Manuel Luis Ochotorena. And my colleagues in ASTI, DOST, and the hardworking people in Pedro, Tatos, who have been preparing for this event for the past week, more than that. Our friends who have traveled from abroad to join us today, from SSTL and from SATREC-I, thank you very much for coming over. And finally, to the members of the media covering this event today, thank you for being here and for your participation. Let me now talk to you about Pedro, and we have some slides here. Pedro, as you know already, stands for the Philippine Earth Data Resource Observation Center. Okay. In our country, we have begun looking into space technology to address manifold requirements in monitoring our rich natural resources and also in responding to the incessant need to respond to disasters and calamities. By building, launching, and effectively utilizing space technology, initially with small satellites, we hope to address these requirements effectively and at the same time build local industry capacity and build the skills of our researchers and our young people to contribute to a knowledge economy. You see here our efforts so far. I think there should be an image there. Of the deployment, if you click on that, can you click on that please? Never mind. We have launched so far 3 small satellites, Diwata 1, Diwata 2, and a small CubeSat, Maya 1. Diwata 1 and Diwata 2 are scientific Earth observation satellites weighing about 50 kilograms. And this is the result of our young students who went to Japan to earn their advanced degrees and learn about space technology there. And I'm proud to say that these students have come back and they are with us in the university, in DOST-ASTI, and hopefully soon, perhaps they might consider joining the space agency. Okay. So with these satellites, I guess the burning question is, why do we choose to go into space technology and satellites? The answer is four-letter word, data. Okay. Data is very important in fostering a knowledge economy, enabling scientific discovery and better understanding of our environment. We want data as a source of evidence-based policies so that with our resources in the country, we can come up with more relevant and responsive programs. We want to enable a knowledge-based economy that fosters inclusive innovation. And finally, data that tackles so-called information poverty, which is intricately linked with economic poverty. With limited resources in the country, we want to optimize these resources, and we need actionable information to come up with programs that are more effective. So we look to space with a strategic vantage point of space to get valuable data that we turn into actionable information. So examples of data, as you see here, are satellite images. And you see here various images taken by our microsatellites, the DOST-1, that have been processed. Multispectral data, basically showing pictures taken at different colors or wavelengths. And by doing so, we can highlight certain things, like turbidity of water or the growth of vegetation. So these are all information that we can get from these satellites. You see there also a picture of my own volcano when it was erupting. And as our satellite goes over our territory, we can point it in the direction of interest to take pictures over land and water. The satellite imagery, spaceborne data in general, can yield valuable information in the following applications. Scientific Earth observation, which would motivate research into this area and would give our scientists and engineers valuable information in their hands to conduct more scientific studies and to contribute to the wealth of understanding of our environment through their papers and publications and contribution to the body of knowledge. In a more operational and practical sense, we want to use this information for monitoring our natural and built environments, managing these resources, and optimizing in applications such as agriculture, monitoring forest cover, or fisheries, and also heritage sites. We want to use this information to understand better urbanization and to plan better our cities, and of course to address our requirements in disaster risk reduction and management. So Pedro, which is here, is we established the first Pedro Center in Quezon City, in our headquarters in DOST-ASTI near University of the Philippines, Diliman campus. So you see there are pictures of what it was about 3 or 4 years ago. The idea is for this receiving station to communicate with a specific class of satellites. The specific class of satellites refer to Earth observation satellites. Satellites that are equipped with cameras that are pointed down to the Earth to take pictures. So these are not satellites that we use for the internet, not satellites that we use to broadcast or relay television signals. This is a specific kind of satellite equipped with instruments that are pointed to the Earth, sensors, cameras, telescopes that measure our environment. Next. More pictures of what it looks like now. So I guess some improvement in the facility. And then, of course, today we are here and you get a view of this ground receiving station and the antenna when it was not yet covered by this egg-shaped structure, which we know as a radome. You see that over there. Okay. Next slide. And as already mentioned, it has this 7.3 meter antenna. The team has always been proud in saying it's the largest tracking antenna. I tried to qualify that by saying maybe it's specific Earth observation satellites. The antenna that you see behind that, which belongs to the airport, is also a tracking antenna. It's a radar that tracks aircraft. And perhaps maybe it's a little bit bigger, I don't know. But you see that structure in the back, right? But anyway, it is specific for scientific Earth observation satellites, and we're very proud and happy that we are here today to inaugurate this facility formally. Okay, next. We acknowledge our partners, the Department of ICT and the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines. In particular, the ICT has been instrumental in the connectivity of this facility because we do not need to have people man the facility. It is automated and it can be controlled over the network via high-speed link to our headquarters in Quezon City. So when satellites pass over this area, this antenna will automatically track that without manual intervention, and we can obtain the data from this facility through high-speed links, courtesy of our government network, to our facility in Quezon City. So thank you very much. Of course, Region 11 has been instrumental in all the preparations and in, as people on the ground to communicate with our partners here in Davao, and they've been very instrumental. Thank you. Okay, next. So Pedro is our gateway to these Earth observation satellites. You see here pictures of satellites of other countries, commercial and free satellites. Later today, we will have a demonstration of communication with one of these satellites. So we take advantage of the data, not just from our own satellites, Diwata 1, Diwata 2, but also from satellites of other countries. They complement each other to solve a bigger problem and a bigger demand for this geospatial information. So just some details of these satellites. They differ in terms of capability, and one of those capability features is how well they can see the features on the ground in terms of resolving them, or what we call resolution. So you see here some satellites with varying degrees of resolution from 3 meters to 0.3 meters to 0.4 meters. With that kind of resolution, you can see small features. You can see cars, you can see probably the clothes that you hang in your backyard. Perhaps. Okay. And then there are two kinds, optical satellites and what we call synthetic aperture radar satellites, which I will describe in a little bit more detail in the next slide. Okay. Two kinds of satellites. Next. So when we communicate with satellites, we track them. And hopefully later you will see, when you see the demonstration, you will see this piece of a display called the satellite tracker, wherein you can see the path of the satellites as they pass over our ground station. And when they pass over a ground station, our antennas automatically actuate and they will track these satellites. So what's involved in operating a ground station like this? Well, the satellite is a tool at our disposal. We need to tell it what to do. And we do that by tasking. So we send commands to the satellite, either directly or to our partners in other countries, and that command is communicated to the satellite and it is stored on the satellite, and upon the appropriate time it will execute that command. And another thing that we do with these satellites to a ground station is to download data from it. So I believe later this afternoon we will see a demonstration of downloading of data from the satellite. Okay. And that tasking and downloading produces a satellite image. It is a raw image. It needs to be processed. Processing is done by teams of scientists and engineers in ASTI, in the universities, and also, hopefully, very soon, in our partner agencies in government as well. So then from these processed images, they now can cater to a wide variety of applications. There's derived applications and they're disseminated to end users. And with Pedro, our initial target is our government partners in government who are present here today, represented by different agencies. So just some, siguro, eye candy, no? Some pictures of examples of these satellite images. This is COMSAT-3, a satellite from Korea, with our partners in SATREC-I here represented they're represented here today. An image of, understand this is Metro Manila and the Pasig River. It's very hard actually to image Metro Manila because it's always cloudy most of the time. With optical images, when there's cloud cover, it is impossible to see beyond the clouds or beneath the clouds. Okay, next. This is another example of a satellite image which we obtained, and one application of an optical image like this with fine resolution is when an earthquake passes or a typhoon passes, we can estimate more intelligently the extent of the damage caused by such a disaster. And so we try to reduce the guesswork, we try to have evidence and science-based assessment of these kinds of phenomena. Okay, next. Now, probably more relevant, Yusek Rene mentioned the earthquake that happened in Mindanao a while back. This is an image captured by our satellites, the satellites we have access to, of an area in Cotabato showing a landslide caused by the earthquake. So an image before and an image after that event is shown here. And from these two images, we can do change detection. And what you actually see here in this image are those red dots, which I understand in the image, those are houses. And so one way that we can use images like this is when we know that there is already a landslide, we try to identify where the people are in terms of their houses and give that to emergency responders. So when they try to dig through the rubble or through the landslide, they know where to dig first because there was a house over here. And when a landslide happens, basically all landmarks disappear and it's very difficult to know where to try to look for survivors. And the detection of houses here is not done manually. We have been investing in modern techniques and tools, courtesy of our team, to use things like, you might have heard of artificial intelligence and machine learning, which does these algorithms, does this processing in an unsupervised and more efficient automated way. So that is used in this kind of processing. We want to highlight here the capability now of our government and our society in general to mobilize data. Data mobilization is an important capability that we are also, I guess, highlighting right now with the launch of this facility. That means we can now mobilize data to prepare for and respond to in a much better way for disasters. So that is a message that we also would like to convey. Okay, next. Flood extent mapping. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. This is an example of monitoring infrastructure. For example, farm-to-market roads that are funded by our government through various government agencies. And now we are, an example of data mobilization is using satellite images like this to monitor the progress of big-ticket government projects. This is DBM's Project DIME, Digital Imaging for Monitoring and Evaluation. What is shown here is, I understand, the farm-to-market road. Can you click on the next slide? If it shows anything there. So before and after, you see the road actually being constructed. And so with contractors saying perhaps that it is 100% complete, we can try to verify that as well through satellite imagery. Next. This is an image showing road network prediction using artificial intelligence, and I hope, well, it's not showing up here, but we have algorithms that use satellite images to identify where the roads are. And that is important as a pre-disaster information because you overlay that now with flood maps, and you will identify, we will be able to identify what roads are impassable and also the extent of damages to infrastructure. So an example of such damage is the damage to the road network. So when we deliver supplies to affected areas, we will be guided by better intelligence and information in delivering these kinds of interventions. Okay, next. For agriculture, we have been working with various organizations to do crop mapping. And in this case, identify where the mango trees are planted, how many of them there are, right? Also where the sugar cane is planted and where rice is planted, and tracking that over time at different times of its growth. So these are examples that we have been working on with the Sugar Regulatory Administration, with PhilRice, with the Department of Agriculture, with Bataan Peninsula State University for mango trees, etc. Now, synthetic aperture radar is a different class of images and satellites that can see through clouds because it does not use optical imagery. It uses radar or radio waves that can penetrate clouds. And that is very valuable in a country like the Philippines. We are blessed with a lot of clouds. This is an example of an image taken through radar, and at the same time, we can also use it to image during nighttime. With optical cameras, it might be very difficult and close to impossible to do that imaging at night. Next. So here you see an image taken by an optical camera on the left of the same area and a radar image on the right. And you can see here clearly some features on the water that can be seen by radar better than by the optical cameras. In particular here, what we see are fish pens. So that's an example of the advantage of radar technology on these satellites. We can monitor the building of these fish pens and their expanse, and also when we monitor these infrastructure as well. So that's an example of the application of synthetic optical radar. Now, the stakeholders, or so-called users, these images have been proliferating and have been disseminated to various government agencies. Here is just a chart of some of the agencies that have been visiting us physically or communicating with us via email or going to our portal. And on occasion, they come to our offices and they bring entire hard drives so they can download immediately whatever amount of data that we have. And so that is given to government agencies. Okay, so that's an example of that. Now, finally, of course, if you're not yet on that list, maybe you can go back to that previous slide. If your agency or an agency you know is not yet on this list, right, how do you contact us? Next slide. This is how. You can send an official letter, but you don't have to write a physical letter. You can just attach it via email. The email address is grs@asti.dost.gov.ph. Your request must contain the following information: the area of interest, the type of data that you need, the date of capture. Right? We'll try to get as close to that as possible, and your preferred resolution. What kind of details do you need to see on that image? So we'll be happy to work with you on this information request to try to explain some of this information that you need to put on your request just by sending us an email, grs@asti.dost.gov.ph. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody. Thank you very much, and welcome to our ground receiving station.